Hey, welcome to Socialism for All. This file is being recorded for the April 2025 edition of Socialism for All, and in it we're going to continue our reading of the 1979 Soviet government collection titled Lenin on Petty-Bourgeois Revolutionism, reading the introduction to section 4, which is the final section. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe, and consider supporting on Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee at patreon.com/socialismforall or buymeacoffee.com/socialismforall. There are links to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee in the video description. And to get your own copy of this PDF, just check the video description. Let's begin. An excerpt from Lenin's article, The Importance of Gold Now and After the Complete Victory of Socialism, written for the 4th anniversary of the Socialist Revolution, 1921, concludes this collection. Having endured the trials of the Civil War unleashed by domestic counter-revolution, and of an armed intervention by 14 states, the aim of which was to strangle the young socialist republic, having survived not only the stress of bloody battles but also famine, epidemics, and economic dislocation, the people of Soviet Russia began peaceful construction. In working out the general direction of the country's advance towards socialism, Lenin, at the end of 1920 and the beginning of 1921, undertook the task of translating into concrete terms the economic policy of the party and the state, and of bringing it into accord with the conditions of a peaceful stage in the country's development. Overcoming opposition from various ultra-leftists who failed to understand the urgent need for formulating a correct policy in a rapidly changing situation, Lenin pointed again and again to the Marxist principle calling for a dynamic approach in policymaking. In the specific situation of that time, this meant a change from the policy of war communism to the NEP, the new economic policy. War communism, with its severe restrictions and extraordinary economic measures, was necessary in order to ensure uninterrupted food supplies for the Red Army fighting at the Civil War fronts, and for the famine-stricken industrial centers that provided the army with weapons and ammunition. But by 1921, it had outlived its usefulness. The ultra-left, Trotskyites and anarchist syndicalist groups refused to acknowledge the fact that the establishment of normal, mutually acceptable relations between town and country had become an urgent task. To carry out this task, it was necessary to allow the peasants to sell their surplus product at market prices, that is to say, to provide to them material incentives for raising productivity. The ultra-revolutionaries regarded the NEP as a, quote, betrayal of principles, a deviation from the revolutionary trajectory, and a return to capitalism. They showed similar political obtuseness on another vital issue, the building of socialism's economic foundations. There was only one way to do this in a country where small commodity forms of economy prevailed, and which was encircled by hostile capitalist states, and that was to build the material and technical guarantees of independence in the historically shortest time. For this, it was necessary in the first place to industrialize the country, i.e., to create a heavy industry with no outside aid. When it came to the question of financing the industrialization, the ultra-left, showing complete ignorance on the question of the worker-peasant alliance, set forth an adventurous plan calling for the exploitation of the village, or as they themselves put it, exploitation of pre-socialist forms of economy. According to their plan, the financial means for industrialization were to be derived from higher agricultural taxes and higher prices for industrial goods. Lenin demolished these theoretically weak and practically dangerous schemes and completely rejected the ultra-left view that the dictatorship of the proletariat meant the imposition of the will of the proletariat on the rest of the population, in this instance on many millions of peasants. Lenin had always held that a proletarian state must represent the whole society and take into account the interests of all other classes. The new economic policy was an example of this attitude. In The Importance of Gold, Lenin showed that the political thinking of the ultra-left was extremely narrow, and that their understanding of the ways and means of building socialism was crude and superficial. Revolutionary politician, scholar, and statesman Lenin was able to find the correct way in dealing with the most complicated situations during some of the most crucial moments in the nation's history. And he taught this to the Communist Party, which he founded 3/4 of a century ago, a party which, together with the people, has gone through years of achievement and years of ordeal, a party which goes on from one stage to the next, gaining strength all the while along the road of building a new world.